Hello and welcome to Mambition.
Hello, I'm Alex.
And this is Tiffany, episode number 8. Woo woo!
Well, we think anyway.
No, it
It
definitely
is.
is. And
Okay.
it's I don't know about you. I know you probably feel the same, Alex. It's an incredible achievement.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're recording this at 8:30 at night after I've
Yeah.
struggled to get my child to bed and your children are still up.
Don't judge me. Do not judge me. Yeah,
No,
we're
I'm
gonna
not judging. I think whatever works for you. I
exactly.
just, like I was saying just before, I'm getting Ted to bed for 7:30 normally, so I can have a couple of hours of chill before I go to bed. So
Yeah.
respect that
No, I'm
your
actually,
kids.
Alex, from this conversation today, I am taking a leaf out of your book and we will try an earlier bedtime. I think we'll start aiming for 8:30 in bed, 8:30, like
Mhm.
asleep. So I hope everyone's had a good week, by the way. Oh, I did want to share as well. We had an interesting episode of my daughter. She suffered
Oh.
from febrile convulsion. Don't know if
Oh my
anyone's heard of that.
god, really?
Yeah. So was it last Saturday? I just want to share this in case anyone else manages to, experience this, so you know what it is, right? So we went to bed as normal. She wasn't very well. She had a bit of a fever. I thought it was just something Calpol would fix. And then during the night, I noticed she wasn't really moving,
Oh my
and
god.
like she was facing away from me. So I thought she wasn't really moving. I thought, oh, she's having a moment where she couldn't be bothered to move. Can't be bothered. And I looked at and I tried to look at her face, and I realized her face. She was awake, and she was just like blankly staring into space. And I freaked out. I
Oh
remember
my goodness.
screaming. I was screaming.
I bet.
Yeah, I was screaming with my husband, saying he was asleep. Mark, Mark. And eventually he came, and yeah, she had like it's like a minute seizure fit.
Mhm.
It's quite scary, but it's something that one in 20 children suffer from, but it's not necessarily detrimental. It's just one of those things.
Mhm.
So we ended up at A&E, and yeah, we stayed overnight, and she
Oh
was
my
fine the next day.
goodness.
But it's pretty scary.
Yeah, that sounds horrible. And I'm pretty sure I know someone else whose children had it, but I can't remember who. Like someone we
Okay.
know definitely, but
Yeah, it's pretty
if
scary.
listening to tell
I
us.
I know, and I just wanted to share that because I think it's good to share our kind of other mini children stories. So in case someone else, you your child suffers from that or has an episode, don't overly panic. It will be okay. It's just one of those things children suffer from. So
So
yeah,
what caused it?
fever, extreme fever, just
Okay.
really like high fever. But she was fine. The next, I mean, didn't that night she was quiet. She was really bad. I was
Mhm.
scared. It was scary. But again, it's got to the hospital. Obviously, I was like panicking, crying. It was shocking. But and then I took the next day off work, and I think I just had a moment where, you have this experience in life that could have ended badly. Because obviously
Mhm.
at that time I just thought like, wow, okay. But yeah, it gives you a bit of clarity. I took the day off after the day after off work, and yeah, just spent time with them, and just was grateful she's still here. So yeah,
Yeah, of course. I
one of
mean,
those moments.
super scary, and I think parenting throws you so many of those things that you don't expect.
It definitely does. But you just have to, I think you just have to take what you want from it and enjoy every single moment. So that was just another moment experience for me in my bank of experiences that life is precious. So I don't look back and I wish it didn't happen, but I'm kind of not that I'm glad it happened, but I'm grateful for it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For,
Anyway,
like, what it makes you appreciate and things.
I think so, yeah, because you can't control what happens, but you can manage your reactions and perspectives and learnings, right? And that's the way I see
Mhm.
life. So, yeah, you feel sad and you move on, but it could have been worse. That's the way that I see it. So, for me,
Yeah.
it's just wow, my children are still here. Thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a great start, but we'll move on to the fantastic topic for today. What are we what are we chatting about today?
Yeah,
Um,
so we're talking about, I guess, how our childhoods influenced our motherhood journey, and I guess I've shared a little bit about that before. Um, I think mostly that my mum had, my mum has lupus and has had that since she was 21, and that really impacted upon her sort of ability to work, to I guess, have the energy to play with her children. You know, she had 2 children. I think she was 27 when she had me. Um, and she was ill quite a lot when we were little. And I think that that experience definitely does shape you a little bit. You know, my mum's a fantastic parent, absolutely fantastic, but she had like a lot of additional challenges to kind of overcome to be able to look after us. And, you know, so lupus is an autoimmune disease, and basically like it can cause you to have you have what's called a flare up. So it can affect you in all different ways. So some people get a big rash across their skin, like a bright red rash that they can't do anything about. Some people, my mum's cousin had it actually, and it affected her kidneys, so she had to have dialysis and she died quite young. My mum's, it's affected her joints, so she's had 2 hip replacements, 2 knee replacements. She's had a hand rebuilt. She's had surgery on her foot. And she's been in quite, you know, I guess, poor health over the last decade or so, really. But when we were little, the flare-ups meant that she would have to have time in bed. And there wasn't anything she could do about it. She just had to be in bed and lie down. And I think that obviously was very frustrating to her. But it also meant that she sometimes was a little bit, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, sometimes was a little bit short on patience, which, you know, as a child, I think you find difficult. But also now that I've become a mother, I completely understand the short impatience thing. Like, you know, I've got a son who is wonderful, but high energy, high everything. I see you smiling there, Tiffany. Like,
no
you know, like he's intense. He's a fun child, but he's a lot. And I definitely can see how if I was also ill while trying to deal with him, that I wouldn't have a lot of patience. So I think having your own child helps you reflect on your own childhood and understand it in a way that you didn't at the time. But I think it does also impact upon the choices that you make. And that, you know, I kind of have chosen to only have one child. And I think partially because I'm worried about the level of patience I would have if I had two, especially if I had another one like Ted. You know, I think my ability to be patient and not get really stressed out by that. And, you know, I feel like I could have a propensity to be like an angry person if I was really stressed out by 2 children. So, yeah, I feel like that's definitely influenced how I approach parenting, and even down to my approach to only deciding to have one child.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So it sounds like because you have the advantage of obviously seeing what your mom was dealing with. It sounds like it's made you a lot more conscious about making sure that Ted's story is different from yours. Right.
And I have to say, you know, I had a lovely childhood. I really did. But I think that, yeah, definitely I felt like sometimes that I was not a bother, but that my mum didn't have the capacity to kind of, you know, engage fully because she wasn't well. And, you know, there's no blame towards her for that at all. But I think that I can understand why it would make her like not have the patience that I want to have with Ted. And I think, you know, I think everybody wants to do things differently. You know, there are elements that everyone likes from their own childhood. And I think every single parent is, I guess, going to make their own mistakes. So I'm definitely going to do things that Ted will look back on and think, why the hell did you do that? And it's inevitable that you'll do things that, you know, won't be what your children wanted. But I think that trying to be conscious about how you parent maybe helps you avoid some of those mistakes. I don't think it'll help you avoid all of them, but I do think it'll, you know, maybe help you avoid some of them.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because I think it's easier said than no. We're in the trenches, right? When you're in the trenches, it's a different experience. Just like before we had kids and you see people with screens, you go, oh, I'd never have screens. And then you have kids, you're like, oh, never mind, you better take a screen. So yeah,
Let's
but
get Dougie on.
exactly. But I like the consciousness, and I think that's what it's about. It's about that consciousness and knowing we have the power to choose.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of my upbringing, so similar, quite similar to yours, Alex. A key part of my childhood also was my mum not feeling very well. My
Hmm.
mum was unwell a lot of me growing up. I just remember her again being in bed. My mum had blood poisoning, and she was very unwell, and she was very absent in my childhood in terms of just hospital visits and trips. This is when we
Hmm.
lived in Nigeria. And I just remember being very close to my mum, but she just wasn't around. And then my mum passed away when I was 9 and my brother was 2. So obviously, because it's just what I know in terms of my mom passing away and then me growing up without a mom, and I've had some amazing people in my life who have been incredible to me, but it's only when I became a mom myself that I really had time to reflect on that as a mom. And I thought, wow, my mom passed when my brother was 2. Like, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and sometimes it makes me very sad to think
Hmm.
she wasn't could not be around for my brother, because I couldn't imagine now, God forbid, something happened to me.
Yeah, of
So
course.
so that's been it's been an interesting kind of space to be in. So you can really reflect on what that meant to her, because obviously I didn't know that until now.
Hmm.
And but at the same time, I think it's been a good thing now for me, because a lot of my way of parenting is really gratitude. And I know, people might say, a lot of people have children, so it's not a big deal. But for me, it is a big deal, just because I see, because of the void that I feel like my mom left um, in my life, and seeing how I have now an opportunity to be a mom. I just think it's a blessing. So a lot of my perspective and mindset is just gratitude. Every day I wake up, I know it sounds crazy. I'm literally like, thank you, God, I have children. Thank God I'm a mom. Thank you, I get to experience this, because I just think it's wonderful. I think it's a gift. And so yeah, a lot of that was that. But the other side of it also was just this I had a very strict upbringing. So my dad was
Hmm.
quite strict, and so when I think a lot about being a child, it was that kind of typical Nigerian strict environment, and how that shapes my style of parenting. I'm still developing my style of parenting.
Hmm.
So I'm coming from very strict upbringing. My husband comes from quite a relaxed upbringing. So what I want to create is, I want us to create our own. I want us
Hmm.
to have a space where I do think children need rules. I'm not like, I don't plan on be like my children's best friends or anything. That's not how I see it, first
Hmm.
personally. But I want them to feel the freedom enough to come to me and ask for my opinions on things. But at the same
Hmm.
time, I don't want them to think I'm so striving so hard to be their friend that I'll let them get away with anything. So it's about creating that middle ground of this free childhood where you're able to think for yourself and develop your own
Hmm.
opinions. But at the same time, you know their boundaries and their rules, and their things like, you shouldn't do as a child. So I'm still creating that, but I think I am committed to reading books, but
Hmm.
basically, because I want to shape I'm still shaping my own parenting styles. Yeah.
Yeah, and how much do you feel like losing your mum at such a young age has kind of like contributed to you
Hmm.
like wanting to find that, being so intentional about it?
Oh, 100%. I think you look back on your life, and sometimes you do. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've been times when I thought I wished my childhood was easier. You think, oh,
Hmm.
I wish I had a mom and a dad, and my dad was in the house, and I had a lovely childhood, and everybody, but I didn't. And I had I'm not complaining about my life, because I think everything that's contributed to me to being this person today, and I love this person today. So in a way,
Hmm.
I'm super grateful. I'm like, oh, thank you for everything. But at the same time, I do think, yeah, I mean, there's so many like disciplines. I mean, this topic, this is like a hours and hours of chat we can have. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you the things that, just like the discipline I had as a child. So, for example, when I grew up in when my dad, my mom passed away, we moved to England, and in a typical Nigerian strict household, the things Nigerian parents do, like English parents would never understand. They're just like, what do you mean? So, for example, my dad didn't believe in having a washing machine. And that will blow any British family's mind.
Yeah, my mind's being blown by that right now.
So wait for it. I had a school blazer and I used to hand wash my school blazer.
Oh my goodness.
So and don't get me wrong, to an English person, that's abuse. But to an African person, that's discipline. Like I literally used to take my green blazer and use hand to soak it, hand wash it, and then my dad would be like, "You need to wash your brother's school uniform as well." So, but don't worry, I won't have my kids washing.
Does he have one now?
Pardon?
Does he have a washing machine now?
No, my dad doesn't. No, Africans. It's hard to explain. I mean, again, it's just only a Nigerian kind of person who's been through this will get
Don't
it.
tell him you want a robotic Hoover.
I know. So yeah, it's things like that. And you think, what? And then another thing, we never had a Hoover. My dad did not believe in buying a Hoover. So I used to get a dustpan and brush and sweep the whole house. Like again, that's a 3-bedroom house, up and down, doing the carpets. But I look back and at that time, I was frustrated. I was very angry. I think, why is this man so cheap? But God, am I grateful? Because right now, I tell you, we have a 4-bedroom house. There's been times where I just get a dustpan and brush, and I will brush this whole house, and it's amazing. And I just think to myself, like, sometimes you just need that bit of discipline, and that's what my child gave me. He gave me this discipline. He gave me this tenacity that I think sometimes you just need in life when life is tough. So that's something I do appreciate, and I do want my children to have a little bit of that. Just when life gets hard, you just get harder, right? You just get back up and you keep trying again. So yeah, that's been a key part for me. What about you?
I think that's part of it. It's like building the resilience, isn't it? And I think, I guess the other lesson I learned from childhood. So I would say, my dad's an only child, and he grew up with parents who decided to only have one child. So this is in the 1950s. So they could kind of give him everything. That they could really focus all their resources into him, make sure that he had everything they could provide. He grew up, my surname's Morgan, it couldn't get more Welsh than that, really. My dad grew up in the valleys in Wales. And basically, his parents, he was the first out of his family to go to university. His parents were super proud of him. But I think that he, for his whole life, felt a level of pressure to kind of perform that is unsustainable. And I think that that's led to him having, issues of his own around, I guess, self-esteem and putting pressure on himself, that mindful colouring that people do.
Yes.
So my dad said to me, my idea of hell would be one of those, because my mum was doing one, and he was like, because I would feel like I needed to sit down and do it all, that I couldn't rest until it was finished. And I think that kind of sums him up, really, that that wouldn't be relaxing. That would be another job he had to tick off the list. And because Ted is going to be an only child, that's made me super conscious about not wanting him to feel like he's being pressured into any particular career. Ted is clever, he's very intelligent little boy.
I was going to touch on that because he's let's say this guy Ted is a genius. That's the best way to put it. And yes, he is bright. I mean, Alex, tell us, he's 3, right? And he reads, guys. He reads.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't want to big him up too much, but he taught himself to read, basically. He knows his times tables. It's a little bit, I wouldn't say that I'm unintelligent, but I don't know where this came from, basically. But anyway, so he's clever. He's doing well at, teaching himself, stuff like that. But my kind of key concern is he able to have the kind of social relationships he needs to be happy in life? That's more of a priority for me. And I want him to go on to do whatever he wants in life, to have the confidence to feel like he can do that. Because I think, especially, we've got the kind of Northeast angle to this podcast. Sometimes there's kind of a little bit of a, I guess, poverty of ambition that people have just got normal secondary schools, and they haven't, I guess, had the kind of confidence that's drilled into them if you went to a private school. I've got relations who went to private schools, and I think like sometimes the only difference between them and other members of the family is literally that they've had confidence drilled into them. They've been told that they can achieve whatever they want to achieve. And I think that that's a really powerful thing, having that confidence and belief in yourself. And I think that sometimes that's the thing that's really lacking about just a normal secondary school education. You know, you do those questionnaires and careers where they're like, you tick a load of boxes and then they tell you that you'd be really good at being like, I don't know, like, I can't even think of a career. Like, you like to be outside, so you would really like to
Pick flowers for a living.
Yeah, like something really just
I know what you mean.
random and out there.
Random and, yeah.
But there's never any sort of real career guidance about actually what do you want to do with your life? What do you find interesting? What inspires you? That's kind of really lacking from education. So I want him to grow up with that, like inspired. I want to, whatever he wants to do, I'm happy with it. Doesn't have to be really ambitious. It could literally be anything that makes him happy. And I want him to be able to go down that route without feeling like I have to do X, Y, and Z to please my parents. And to, you know, I want him to achieve to make himself happy rather than me. And I think that was the problem for my dad, that he was always achieving with one eye on like, what do my parents want me to do? So that's definitely a lesson I've learned from him. And he was very accepting of me doing whatever I wanted, and I think that's a lesson he'd learned from his own parents. And my grandparents were lovely. They're like idolized us completely, but they didn't like it if you kind of said that you'd done something really well. Like they found that like they would almost like tell you you're being big-headed if you said like, yeah, so if you said like, oh, I did this at school and it was amazing, they'd be like, oh, that's a bit of a, oh, do you think you're really clever or whatever? And they would definitely try and push back on that, and almost like, don't really know how to explain it.
You should have done more. Is it,
not that you should have done more, but that they didn't want you to be cocky about it. Right. They were like happy with what you'd achieved, but you weren't meant to be like too big for your boots about it. Yes. And my dad, I remember him once saying to them, no, she's done really well and she's got the right to be proud about it. So he kind of stepped in to say like, no, it's fine for her to be proud about this. So I think that, like he grew up with like them really wanting him to achieve, but also to not boast about it. So I think he like grew up with like a massive conflict about that, which has got to be really difficult.
Sounds like a bit of a tension,
yeah, for sure. And I think that influenced how he parented me and my siblings, but also I think that it's definitely a lesson that I've taken, that I do not want Ted to kind of feel this unnecessary pressure. I want him to achieve, but to do it from his own internal motivation, and because he wants to do that rather than he's trying to make me happy.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? It's almost like you've read the book of your childhood and now you're dissecting it, right? You're taking the lessons and what you don't want, what you do want. And I think another perspective is, if for anyone who's listening to this and thinking about what sort of motherhood story they want to write, is sometimes you just want to. I remember someone said something like, even if you live in a place where you're not inspired by anyone, right? You're thinking, I want to be better, but there's nobody around me that can inspire me. I don't have any role models. You can actually do the opposite of what the people around you are doing. And that in itself is it's a model, right? So you can say, okay, my parents were not great parents, and I'm going to do opposite of everything that they did, and that will make me a great parent. So just another way to look at it. But it's interesting what you say about the need to perform. I definitely had that growing up. I was always a bit of a people pleaser because I grew up in an environment where I was considered quite intelligent by my parents compared to my siblings. Well, not just me. So Nigerians are very performance-based. Everything is like very educationally driven. So it's like, you have to go to school and do this and get first this and first that. And my parents played these games among themselves where it's like, oh, my child is a doctor, my child is an engineer, my child's first class. So it's very competitive. And I always, because my parents considered me to be quite bright, I always had that pressure to like best grades. And I always did as a child.
Like it was all riding on you to.
Yeah. I had another sister who was also considered bright, but they just kind of felt like I was bright. And I had that pressure of like I had to get good grades and I had to be top of the class. And I remember when being young, like so in Nigeria, you get numbers, and so if there's typically 30 children in a class, and everyone actually gets graded 1 to 30. So imagine even what that does for your confidence.
Gosh,
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah,
horrendous.
yeah, yeah. I remember. Yeah, you get number one to
Imagine being
30.
30.
Yes, yes, that was it. This is it. That was how we were graded. And I remember once I came back with number two, I know just remember being told off for that. Yes, this is our like everything's performance. But yeah, that I think I carried a lot of that as a child, where I felt this burden of impressing my parents and being like this
Hmm.
really good student. And so I felt like I had to please everyone, I had to be really good. And that was something I carried, which I wasn't really happy about. And another thing is that even when I went to university, I remember this now, and I was supposed to study psychology. And at university, I chose to study psychology. I got a place at Royal Holloway. And interestingly enough, my dad actually made me change my mind to study law. And it's one of those
Really?
things, yeah. I remember telling my dad I wanted to do psychology. I really like psychology. And I remember he actually convinced me that law had a bit more of a weightier sort of not expectation, it's a much more of a weightier degree, according to him.
Hmm.
And my dad actually convinced me to go through clearing and I ended up studying law. So obviously don't get me wrong, I do enjoy law, but now I look back and I think I wished I stuck to my guns. But again, that's
Hmm.
one of those little things parents do and the expectations. But anyway, I'm here now. So, it's not all bad, but I think I definitely think about that as when I become, and now that I'm a mum myself, I am looking at my children and thinking, what I want to do is bring out the best of what's in them.
Hmm.
I'm not going to impose whatever I want on them. I just want to see what they display and make that better. That's it. Just
Yeah.
make it the best. Because now my son's very he has such strong attention to detail, things that I don't care about, he cares about. Oh, that needs to be there. And I can tell already has this kind of things has to be very orderly with him. And I just think, what could that be? He loves trains. I explore trains with him. I expose him to every train experience possible. I know my daughter, she's very messy and very kind of over there, over here. So she's quite chaotic, which again, I want to explore what that would look like. So I think that's definitely something I've taken from my childhood that I'm definitely applying to being a mom, is that pressure. Just take off the pressure from children,
Hmm.
because otherwise they just end up right, living your story, not theirs. I'm conscious
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
I think that's super important. I mean, so again, my mum was like the first person in her family to go to university. Like my mum and dad are like the first of their
Mhm.
in both families are the first to go to university. And my grandparents, so they were like Italian immigrants, they all had sweet shops and like ice cream shops. That's basically what they did. They were like quite famous in the northeast. So they were like the Sacco family and the DeMambro family. And
Mhm.
like people still, well, like my uncle still runs the Sacco sweet shop that's been there for like 65 years or whatever.
Wow.
But my granddad had kind of left school, gone into the army, fought, and despite being Italian, like fought for the British Army in the Second World War, came back, opened his shop, had his children, but he was really into education. So even though he was very clever and like had learned languages like while he was traveling and stuff, but he wasn't like really formally educated. And he used to literally ask my friends when they came in the sweet shop, which obviously they did when we were kids, is Alex a good scholar? Like that was literally what he used to ask my friends,
Oh,
and then what used to be important to him.
scholar.
Yeah, scholar.
Oh,
And actually,
wow.
my mum and her sister both studied law at university as well.
Yes.
So, and became solicitors. And he used to say to me when I was like a teenager, are you going to do law as well? And I was quite, I definitely had a ADHD and like, struggled with not the content of school, but like the regimen of school. Like I really struggled with being like forced to be in school and do homework, all of that kind of thing that people with ADHD struggle with.
Mhm.
But there was also that part of me that was like, I am not going to do that because I don't want to be the same as like my parents, basically. So I like ruled that out as a potential subject to study because I didn't want to do the same as them. But there was a lot, like there was pressure from other people in the family, not necessarily my parents, but I think that kind of like there are more people in your family that kind of shape your kids' ambitions and stuff like that than just you. And I think that it was really great that actually on my dad's side of the family that he did that pushing back against my grandparents and their kind of attitude about like not being pleased with yourself. I've always been quite confident, and if I've done something well, I want to tell people about it or talk about it. And I think I'm like really happy that my dad did push back on that occasion. And I kind of, that's kind of led me to want to be Ted's advocate as well, if you know what I mean. So like if other people, especially because he is clever, I think he's going to have people saying things to him like, are you going to be a scientist? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? And like, he doesn't need the pressure. You know what I mean? I think he needs to find his own path. And at the minute, he's crazy about space, but he's 3. That might not continue. Like he might get into something completely different. He might decide he really likes art. And I don't want to like prioritize the STEM subjects again, because if you like go to a normal secondary school, it's all about STEM, isn't it? Because people who, I don't know, who don't have trust funds don't get to do art anymore.
That makes sense. I love that what you said about being an advocate for him. I think that's quite powerful, because there are a lot of voices, right? There's going to be a lot of influences and family members and friends and people saying things. But as long as you're, like you said, going to be an advocate for him, I think he'll always be okay. That's what you will be as his mom. Okay. I like that.
I hope so.
Yeah. And yeah, so I think lastly, I mean, we'll wrap it up. And finally, I think, again, we have the luxury, right? Luxury of being parents and looking at how our parents parented. And then one day our children will have the luxury of looking at how we parented, at how they're going to parent. So, every generation always wants to do it better. But I think it's about having that consciousness and a consciousness to kind of take a step back and think, what am I going to do, rather than just being a product of your environment. Oh, my parents always did. I always, let's not get trapped into that. I think the key thing is just that consciousness, but always learning. This is how I see it anyway. Always learning, always growing, always seeking information and seeking, like sitting down and thinking, okay, what am I doing? Can this be better? And how can I be my best self? And as a mum, so that my children can have an incredible life, full of ups and downs, of course. But, I'm overall, I'm very grateful for my childhood, because it's shaped me. Everything, every downs shaped me to this woman I am today. So, and I love this woman I am today. I think, especially discipline, the resilience, that's something that's been very powerful, especially as someone, who came from Nigeria to a different country. Our parents do pass on a lot of their kind of migrant mentality, and a lot of that's quite powerful, because you always feel like, I feel like I need to make them proud of me. So that's always good thing. But at this stage of my life, it's a good pressure. It's a good pressure to do well, rather than this kind of crippling pressure to please everyone. And I'm excited. Yeah, I think I'm excited to kind of navigate motherhood and everything that's next for the kids.
I mean, in terms of positives, it sounds like it's really given you like resilience and drive. And that some of that's like a cultural thing that's kind of inbuilt in families, like in Nigerian families, to have that drive and have that ambition. And, maybe that's kind of shaped how you think about things. And so even though you've got 2 really little children, you're still like thinking about yourself and your own ambition, because especially Bella's still so little.
Yeah, so we've got
I'm just laughing because I can hear Bella in the background.
Yeah.
Who have we got with us?
We've got a little. Yeah, so this is a live episode. It's a remix, guys. A remix. Hello. So I think it's probably best we wrap this up. We rather.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
You want to end this episode for us? What would you like to say to everybody? Do you have anything to say?
It's bedtime.
Say, hello. What's your name?
Hello, I'm Sebastian.
Fantastic.
Oh, hello, darling.
I'm glad you all got to meet Sebastian. And yes, we'll wrap it up there, because we don't know what's the next going to come out.
What's going to happen next? Well, night, Sebastian. Night, Tiffany.
Well, it's been lovely. Thank you all guys for joining us. And yeah,
I'm waving at my little friend.
It'll be less chaotic next time.
All right. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.